Hello there my dear friends, and welcome back to another very exciting Star Wars video. It is I coming at you once again, your favourite galactic hostess, Star Wars Meg. Now making videos like this is kind of nostalgic for me. I know a lot of you have been following me since I started, and my channel really started gaining traction just before The Mandalorian Season 2, and a huge amount of anticipation, and I guess speculation, was around when the trailer was gonna drop. And today, my friends, after 3 seasons of the show on Disney+, we're looking forward to the Mandalorian and Grogu movie next summer, May 2026. At the time of making this video, we're 9 months away. It might seem like a long way out, but it's around this time we should get our first teaser trailer for a Star Wars movie, and it might be coming sooner than you think. The next D23 is in 2 weeks' time, and on August 30th, at 9:15 AM Eastern, there is the Walt Disney Studios Showcase. According to the website, this is going to feature an exclusive new look at what's to come from Disney's film studios, and Lucasfilm is listed as one of them. They say updates for Lucasfilm, Pixar, Marvel, Avatar, and more. That's enormous. If Lucasfilm is on the list, we might be getting our first public trailer for The Mandalorian and Grogu. A similar situation unfolded a year ago with Skeleton Crew. We got our first public trailer at the same time as D23 in Brazil. So if that's the case, we're only 2 weeks away from our next major Star Wars movie trailer. Even if it's brief, even if it's a sizzle reel or a teaser, it's something. Now just as a disclaimer, just like so many of these events, there's a good chance nothing we get is public, just for those in attendance. This is Destination D23, not the main expo. That being said, they are promising a new look at the upcoming movies, and the trailer for the event even teases Star Wars content, so fingers crossed. And as I've been saying with most of my Mando videos, be very cautious with your expectations for this one. From everything we've heard, and big spoiler warning, there is no Grand Admiral Thrawn, there are no major cameos, other than the ones we know, Embo, Rotta, Zeb, Sigourney Weaver's character Bishop. But in terms of anything major like Luke, Leia, some people have said Mara Jade, don't expect anything like that. If you want major cameos, just wait for Ahsoka Season 2. I'll put it this way, Dave Filoni has quite a few surprises in store, but as for the Mando movie, my friends, we're very close to our first look, and then we can stop using leaked footage from Celebration. And that's the other thing, they've already got the footage and the trailer ready to go. Jon Favreau's been showing it around at different film festivals in Europe, in North America, but now it's just the waiting game. The movie was filmed for IMAX. It's one which I think you have to see in the cinema. To get the full Star Wars experience, to see the wide shots of some of the new and familiar planets, to get a real sense of the scale of it. Because keep in mind, there are some incredible practical effects, the most impressive being the real-life AT-AT Walker that they built for the movie. Surely that's going to be on display at the next Celebration. And just like every season of the show had a theme, the title card variations, the colours of the logo, the Mandalorian and Grogu is also distinct. The poster and the title transitions in the trailer at Celebration have this distinct, explosive fiery orange, and this is going to match the action-adventure aesthetic. Season 1 was all about the space western, Season 2 introduced more ethereal elements, more Mandalorians, Jedi, Ahsoka, Luke, and Season 3 had an off-green yellow to match the return to Mandalore. Exciting things to come. It's not the movie I'm most excited about, for me that would be Star Wars Starfighter, but it's a new Star Wars project, the franchise's return to the big screen, and you just know, I'm gonna be there day one. But now my friends, joining me to discuss The Mandalorian's legacy, how we feel going into 2026 and the movie, is our good friend Star Force One. So what do you make of all of this? How did we get to this position? Are fans still excited about Mando? It was a global phenomenon just a few years ago, and I guess I also want to ask you about Cara Dune, because as you know the Gina Carano lawsuit was settled, so do you think she might return? A lot of questions, but what do you make of all of this?
Thanks for having me back on the channel, Meg. It's always a pleasure. Basically, I think this is a very good move. We don't know for sure. It seems to me from the statement that she has been rehired, but at a minimum, we don't know. Obviously, we don't know the details of the settlement agreement. At a minimum, she's now not barred from being in any future Star Wars projects. So whether that be Mando Season 4, if that ever gets made, whether that be the Mando and Grogu movie, which I don't know, maybe you know if they've finished filming on that. If there is still time, she can be in that. And even if they want to bring it back, they can bring back Rangers of the New Republic. But basically, it's pretty much, it served as a turning point for the Star Wars fandom. I don't know if you guys watching this were around back then, but there was a clear dividing line. There was a massive fandom civil war. I don't know, do you want to call it that? There was a massive divide in the fandom. And then that was all healed. That all came to a heel when Mando Season 2 happened. Do you want to go through the Mando Season 2 hype build-up?
I mean, here's the thing. If you're talking about 2019, 2020, in internet terms, that is ancient history. Most people have forgotten about it or moved on. But at the time, The Mandalorian, and by extension Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, were seen as the saviors of the franchise. Fans were really bummed out after episodes 8 and 9, and so there wasn't much else. But then here comes a show set post episode 6, and with rumors they were going to tie it to Ahsoka and Bo-Katan and, Rebels, the Clone Wars, finally a project and new characters that fans could really get behind, and evidently the mystique of Baby Yoda. We didn't know his name was Grogu yet and we knew nothing about him. All of these things made The Mandalorian this enormous sensation. And just to say, this extended beyond just the online fandom. Like you look at all these shows nowadays, The Acolyte, Skeleton Crew, Andor, it's mostly for those who pay attention to all of these shows and follow the online discourse and the news cycle, but The Mandalorian went really far and beyond our own little spaces. I saw politics channels, cooking channels, everyone was talking about Mando, people were buying the Funkos and the shirts. I mean, Star Wars was back. New channels were cropping up, my channel grew, I'm sure your channel grew. After season 3 things have really died down, but there was a time The Mandalorian was all the rage. And even prediction videos before the episodes. I haven't done that for any other show, just The Mandalorian.
Everyone in the world was talking about this. Grogu was everywhere. He was on the shelves of even the most random stores. Like you could see like a food truck just in a random city and they'd have a Grogu plushie for sale. That's how crazy it was. And if you were a fan, you definitely knew because everyone was talking about Star Wars. The speculation was going crazy. We'll go through the timeline of what happened. Basically, what did we expect going into season 2? Were there many speculations before the season even started? What I remember was Bo-Katan was speculated and Boba Fett. Rex as well, which didn't end up happening.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think the Rex thing was for Book of Boba Fett. There were so many fake leakers who put out these things saying, oh, Rex and Echo are going to be in Book of Boba Fett. But obviously that wasn't true. But prior to Mando season 2, I remember all of these rumors about Bo-Katan. And the interesting thing about that is she was just limited to the Clone Wars and Rebels. And even though the Clone Wars was huge, Star Wars Rebels not so much. And I would say The Mandalorian single-handedly boosted interest in Star Wars Rebels. Same with the Ahsoka show much later, but I want to return to a time where fans are genuinely interested in the deeper lore and not just, crapping all over Disney, which is a much more popular thing to do these days. But yeah, what do you think of the way fans, like casual fans, perceived the animated shows?
They weren't part of the main, how would you call it? Like the main buffet of Star Wars content. Basically what the normies knew was pretty much just the movies, maybe, and the live action shows pretty much, which was just Mando at that point. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would say you're in the ballpark. I'd say there's a lot of truth to that.
And that's what caused so much hype, because the people that did actually watch the shows had so much material to speculate from, and the normies were like, oh wow, I've never heard of all this, what's going on here? And then they go check out those shows. It created such a good ecosystem of speculation, hype. It was such good brand synergy from what they built up in that season. And let's go through the timeline. It started off with, the first one was Cobb Vanth, right?
It was Cobb Vanth with Boba's armor, and he walks into the bar and people are like, is that Boba Fett? It's like, no, he's too skinny. That's not what Boba looks like. And if you remember, Cobb Vanth comes from the Aftermath trilogy of books.
Yeah, that was from a book. So the people that didn't know it were like, oh, this guy's cool. He's got Boba Fett's armor, so I don't know what's going on here, but this looks sick. But the people that knew were absolutely hyped that they were connecting to such a small little detail. But it was actually a major part of the canon back then, the Aftermath trilogy. So that was already building hype from week 1. And then we also got the Boba cameo at the end.
Well, I also just want to say that to average casual viewers, Star Wars fans or not, the interesting thing about Cobb Vanth is that it was Timothy Olyphant in Star Wars because he was already famous for his work in other things. So afterwards, it was Chapter 10. So this is where this was seen as like a side mission. Some fans really didn't vibe with the episode. It was the Frog Lady stuff and the Ice Spiders. I still had fun with it. It wasn't my favorite episode, but at the time we were like, oh, is Frog Lady a Jedi? Is she secretly, Force sensitive? Do her eggs have significance? And there was also the egg controversy about Grogu being a carnivore and all of that. But the week afterwards is probably one of the best episodes to date.
The amount of hype that I had that week was absolutely insane.
Yep, that's right. Chapter 11, The Heiress, by Bryce Dallas Howard. I love that episode, and I remember thinking, Katie Sackhoff is just perfect as the live-action version of her character. She saves Mando, she was with Axe Woves, and Cosca Reeves, who, by the way, I don't know if you remember, people thought Costco was going to be Sabine Wren when the trailer came out, but it's on the moon of Trask, and Mando goes there to reunite Frog Lady with her husband. He's heard of other Mandalorians being there, and the Night Owls end up saving him, and we find out that her mission is to go after the Darksaber. It was stolen from her by Moff Gideon.
So when you saw the title for that episode, did you have a slight inkling? Did we know the leaks before that?
Leaks, I think there might have been some speculation this might be the Bo-Katan episode, but pretty much until chapter 13, The Jedi, we were expecting Ahsoka every single time, but when I saw the heiress, I think that just gave it away for me.
Yep, so that was absolutely crazy, and then we get we get two massive reveals, basically. First, we hear Bo-Katan threaten the guy asking for the Darksaber. That would have sent you crazy, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. But you know what comes to mind whenever I think of that episode? Is the Imperial that bit the thing in his mouth. That kind of offs him. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that was massive as well. Where the Imperial officer is so committed to the cause that he's willing to kill himself. That tells us so much, really. That did so much storytelling. But if you remember, that told us, shit, are these guys connected to the final, not the final order, the first order? Because we know that they were the most extreme ones. And if this guy's willing to kill himself for the cause, then is he connected to that more extremist faction?
Well, I think there was a lot of talk about the First Order at the time because Jon Favreau put out a statement between seasons 1 and 2 that he wants to kind of connect this time period to the sequels, which worried a lot of fans, but also we could kind of see the connections even from the first season if you're really paying attention. But in this season, yeah, you're right. You know, not just the Snoke clones in the next episode, which we'll talk about, but are you also talking about potential connections to the Unknown Regions and Rey Sloane?
Yeah, what the First Order was a group of the most extreme and most loyal and most hardened Imperials that escaped into the Unknown Regions to prepare their next move. That's all we knew pretty much about them. So then after the Bo-Katan week, we had that, it was an Imperial-like facility underground. And what did we see in those tanks?
Okay, alright. If you're a fan of my channel, you're talking about my favourite episode of the entire show. Chapter 12, The Siege, directed by Carl Weathers, by the way. That was the episode where Greef Karga, Cara Dune, Din and the Mythrol, after they leave Grogu at the school of course, they go to infiltrate a remnant outpost on Navarro, and that's where we see Snoke clones, to answer your question. Those were definitely Snoke. I know people say, well, because of season 3 they were Moff Gideon clones. In retrospect, I'm guaranteeing you they changed that. They were definitely originally meant to be Snoke. The music is Palpatine's Teachings, I think it's called. There's no way they were intending that to be Moff Gideon clones. I know Gideon was looking for Grogu for his blood, but I think it was to bring back the Emperor, to bring back order to the galaxy, as he says.
That's exactly what I thought. And actually, that brings us to the next episode, which was the Boba Fett episode, I think. Yeah, it was the Boba Fett episode. In that episode, what did we see? What ships did we see landing on the Tython?
The tragedy. Oh, yes. You're talking about Slave 1 over Tython. When I saw that, I was like, oh, here we go. Here's Boba Fett. Or do you mean the Stormtrooper carriers, what they called?
Yeah, they were First Order drop vessels.
Well, if you want to talk about sequel foreshadowing, in Season 3 there's the Praetorian Guards, and even some of Moff Gideon's Mandalorian super commandos have the First Order Stormtrooper helmet prototype look. I mean, that's got to be deliberate. So I think as we go into the movie, and maybe even Ahsoka Season 2, I don't know, we might see more and more of those kinds of things from the Remnant. By the way, I think we're talking about Chapter 14, but we missed Chapter 13, the Ahsoka episode, The Jedi.
Yeah, that was huge. That was the most highest rated episode, wasn't it? That was the highest rated.
But also keep in mind, we can talk about that episode all day, the most important part, especially for Legends fans, was Ahsoka's mention of Thrawn at the end, when she puts her lightsaber up to Morgan Elsbeth and says, "Where is your master? Where is Grand Admiral Thrawn?"
Oh, yeah. How do we miss that? So we had massive lore drops. Then we had Morgan Elsbeth constructing ships for somebody, which we didn't know yet, that part of the episode. What did you think? I had no clue what to think after that. I was like, what do you mean by master? I didn't understand what they were trying to say by that.
Well, I think the episode definitely got people more interested in the expanded universe, and this whole thing of how Dave Filoni might do something with Heir to the Empire originates in that episode. You know, Thrawn was already back in canon thanks to Rebels, but plenty of Mando fans, like I said, never saw Rebels.
Then after that, of course, we had the beautiful Boba Fett episodes, which we just went over. Then we had the Bill Burr episodes. And then we had the finale. Let's get to the finale. Luke Skywalker. What was your reaction, first of all, when he said there's one X-Wing? Or when Bo-Katan said there was one X-Wing?
Alright, so I don't know if you remember this, but I actually called it a week before. I made a video titled something like, The Jedi Who's Gonna Save Grogu. And I went through all these options and then I finished with, I think it's going to be Luke. Because Favreau says, oh, we're going to link Return of the Jedi to The Force Awakens. And then Bo-Katan says, "A low X-Wing," and then Cara Dune replies, "Oh great, we're saved," sarcastically. But then when it was Luke, I think we all had the Star Wars theory reaction. It was emotional, we felt our childhood hero was back. It was a great day. I'll just say that. It was a fantastic, amazing day. And even though season 3 was a bit disappointing, there were some good episodes, some really weird ones, I still have hope the Mandalorian and Grogu and maybe eventually season 4 is going to bring us back to the show's greatness. This is the way.